Welcome to the Tweener Madness Championship, where it all comes down to this. One final pitch and a $25,000 investment prize from the Triangle Tweener Fund. After weeks of fierce competition, only 2 startups remain, and today they'll battle it out for the chance to take their business to the next level. They've survived tough questions, defended their vision, and proven their mettle. Now, the selection committee will decide which startup will rise to the top. This is the moment where dreams are made. Here's your host, general partner of the Triangle Tweener Fund, Scott Wingo.
Welcome, everyone, to our championship for the first ever Tweener Madness. Today's selection committee, we have Robbie Allen, general partner of Triangle Tweener Fund, and Nikita Ramaswamy, who has the longest last name of any of our selection committee. I haven't counted, but I can just call that now. And then if needed, I will be our third selection committee and also your MC today. We are the Triangle Tweener Fund team. I started it. Robbie got in over my head. Robbie lifelined me and has been a huge help. And Nikita just joined us this year, or kind of like the tail end of last year. I don't know when you officially started.
Yeah.
Yeah, you got Tweener curious in fourth quarter and then joined in the
exactly.
first.
Pull the trigger.
Cool. So we're in the championship, and it's going to feature ZW versus Invitejet. Up first, we have ZW, represented by Robert Fu to my right. Robert, how are you today?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Good. All right, you're going to have 10 minutes. Do you have any questions or anything before we get started?
No.
All right, go ahead and start.
Okay, if you're looking for the pitch, check out their episode from the round of 8. But here we're diving straight into the action. It's time for the selection committee's tough questions, and they don't hold back.
Robert, great job, and nice meeting you.
Thank you.
So you mentioned you're raising 100K to 250K for building out your sales and marketing team. I'm trying to understand, or maybe you can explain more, how did you come up with that number? And are you accounting for any sort of further capital that will be needed to develop the software, grow the product better? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so mainly that this is our planning right now. And we think that we would like to put 90% of our raised fund in the marketing and sales, and 10% to continue to improve our software. And so how we come up with this number? So we basically saying that if we, at the beginning, actually, I do talk to both Scott and Robbie about this. So if we could not get that much at the beginning, and we would like to use that just for marketing and sales, like do an advertisement, and then, run these booths for the trade shows, and do advertisements in the Google, and so on. Now, if we can get more, then we will hire a sales representative. I mean, if you ask me that what is the most critical person that would like to hire, the sales representative to us right now. And that's the number we come up. Clearly that if somebody wants to write a bigger check to us, definitely we'll welcome, but we would like to pace that. Even we ask for 250, we can ask the investors to pace with us. So you can start with even 50, and then 100 to see that if we can reach to the milestone or not. If we reach that, then you can continue investing in us.
Got it. Thanks.
Robbie?
Great job, Robert. Great to see the presentation. I guess one question we probably all can agree on is, what's your 10-year plan? Sorry, just joking. Hey, that's not the question. 1-year plan sufficient. My background's machine learning, and my questions are around how much of this do you see being productized versus more of a tech-enabled service? Like when you go into every customer, how much of it has to be trained and built specifically for that individual customer versus something that you can build once and reuse multiple times?
Excellent. So to answer your questions, actually, we basically take probably more standard enterprise software marketing and business model. So what that means is that for ZAI, for example, that's more complicated than the other two AI products. It takes typically 6 to 10 weeks for us to work with the customers on these POC, proof of concept. So once you got that, training them how to use the software only take 2 days. I'm not kidding that For people in this room, I can train you for probably half a day. You all can use that.
Even Scott.
Well, first you have to train me on all the glass and material science. Then we'll spend 2 days on the other part.
Clearly, if you like to use this for your specific applications, you can do that too. We basically saying serve for customers is like mainly is the sell the software, but POC need to be done for the ZAI, so customer understand, hey, indeed that I can use this to prove that I can get the value from your software. Then we start to do the deployment. Deployment actually they typically do manual. It's just to get these optimal operating window in their manufacturing process. Once they do that, they can just monitor that. Now how to use that is just like what I said, not exaggerate at all, Excel sheet.
And are you charging for the POCs, or is that a
Yes,
separate?
we do. We charge POC from something like depends on the company, depends on the length of these POC project. Large companies, we typically charge about like 50,000. And mid-sized and smaller size companies are from 25 to 50.
Yeah. So Robert, you've your background is in Corning, and you identified a pain point, and you've developed this solution. I guess my question is, it's a legacy industry, right? Manufacturing processes. What kind of challenges have you faced in sort of convincing these teams to adopt these new software methodologies to improve manufacturing processes? And how are you sort of breaking through that?
Very good. So as a matter of fact, we hired 2 Duke graduates actually working on our software part. And then the industrial engineers, like our team's engineers, worked for Corning for 25 to 30 years. Actually, they provide their input. Actually, I'm like a glue to glue these 2 different teams together, right? Well, we start to utilize AI and machine learning since 2016 for the advanced materials. I directed my former team. So this actually, very good question. This is a major challenge for the large companies to really adopt AI and machine learning. We understood that. Therefore, we move forward with this kind of a glue together. The AI software engineer and also the manufacturing engineers, we glue them together. So they both can appreciate their expertise and experience. Eventually, we will just bring that to the result. And then these process engineers will say, oh yeah, wow, you can do this. I used to use like a traditional statistics or modeling simulation. I can only deal with like 16 variables. Now I'm able to deal with easily 500 variables.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess one follow-up is, why couldn't Corning do this themselves, or these other?
Exactly, that's what I said. Corning, Saint-Gobain, those companies, we were there. We typically would not. Actually, I was Asia CTO of Corning and also global R&D director there for a long time. The culture here is that Corning, Saint-Gobain, those material companies, material suppliers, this is not their core technology. Mm-hmm. They better focus on the core technology, invent the new materials, actually develop a new product for Apple, for the AT&T and so on. This one, we're doing this much more efficient than them. Okay. And so this is basically 100% our effort. And when I was in the leadership in Corning and former GE, I would have spent of course, like $10,000, $100,000 to hire a team to do this very quickly. We no kidding, if the data is ready, we can deliver the result within 2 weeks.
Got it. Thanks.
You mentioned different machine learning models that you're using, custom and even foundational models. What's the sort of mix, or which foundational models? Because it looks like this is an on-prem solution, so you would need, are you using open source models, or what's the types of models you're using?
So in general, like a large language model we use is kind of in front. We customize that. So if you understand that. Actually, if you just use a basic large language model, it's not going to working for these material R&D and manufacturing, because the reliability is not good enough. So we have to do the customized. What you do is that you use RAG, use the prompt engineering and fine tuning to tune that. But that's not, even that is not enough because it's not specific enough. So you have to bring the deep neural network to do that. So you generate the ideas and pass that to the deep learning. And so I can give you a few examples. For example, The MLP, CNN, so, and we also bring the GNN right now. And these three deep neural networks are actually combined together to target to solve different problems. For example, the Z-FastQ, you needed to really convert a very complicated CAD drawings and classify how many holes you have, how many planes you have, what is the relationship between them. So we use a GNN and combine with this CNN together to really accurately predict customers' quotation. So this is kind of a core technology that right now we're using. To answer your questions, we have our own code. Of course, we also take the benefit of, if it is a matrix solving, if it is kind of like all these kind of source code is open, then we will take them. That's what we do. But the ideas, the concept, and structures, and algorithm really is invented by us here in the house.
Do you think that's patentable?
I don't know yet. So we don't intend to patent that, but we intend to make this move faster. So you combine them together. Even today, you got AI companies, a lot of AI companies try to serve for industries. Most of them actually failed because they don't understand, they do not have the domain experience. For example, for melting process, the glass melting process, you need to deal with more than probably 250 variables. Which one is important, which one is not, and then how you interpret the result. Without this knowledge, you cannot do this. So to answer your questions, yes, we use open source, but mainly this model itself is developed by ourselves. And which one is good, MLP is probably good for the regression, but you do need to use a CNN sometimes combine with that to get these to deal with the different kind of problems. And we are very good at this.
Cool.
Yep.
Nikita?
So your background and experience is in the glass and ceramics industry, but do you see other industries and other manufacturing processes that your platform could be applied to? And what is the sort of plan around that? And is that part of the plan?
Excellent. So excellent question. So what happened is that we really have a much broader background than this. It's not just my team does. So it's including glass ceramics, but specialty chemicals actually was my background. When I went to RPI, that was chemical engineering, that was my background, right? Also, I said specialty chemicals is a huge market, and polymers too. That's all in our scope and our expertise. But to start, we just want to focus on this too. And then gradually, if it is really working, then we will extend that, not a problem. And the other thing is that also we can take care of the end customers. End customers means that the keystone material suppliers has customers. For example, Apple. I worked with Apple for a couple of weeks when they really launched the first iPhone. They used Corning Gorilla Glass. So I just to see that how engineers interact with, how we interact with their engineers and so on. And then we worked with end customers most of the time. Samsung, LG, those companies. We can serve this kind of provide this kind of solutions to the end customers too. Right now, it's not our priority yet. But to answer your question, yes, we are able to extend that.
Got it. Thanks.
How ready is the buyer to adopt a solution like this? That is, you need data in order to train the models. You'd mentioned that there's more interest in doing these type of machine learning solutions in this industry, but I'm curious. It seems like a little bit more of an old world type of industry. Is this something that they will accept and be willing, or is it you have to do a fairly significant sales pitch to get them convinced to do something like this?
Yeah, very good question. So right now is that we're focusing on US, Europe, and also Japan. And European customers, for example, you get to have a both side. So customer need to pull and we need to push. So this is a two side. And several large companies in Europeans have the crisis of energy. You know that, right? So European doesn't have an energy source. And especially during the war between Russia and Ukraine, and the energy becomes a very critical factor for company to be successful. So there's 5 customers right now engaging with us and talk about how we can save energy for them, right? Now, how we do that is that they got data ready. These companies have a data. You talk about back to like 10 years data. They put that there, no use. When we get in, we extract the significant value from those data to train our neural network, and then save energy for them. And that's basically how we do that. Most of companies, they don't have any problems to provide data. And plus that, we do not really retrieve the data to our folder and so on. We just do everything in their folder. There's no any barriers we see that. And the software today is ready to answer your questions.
So there's kind of 2 use cases. There's you need help creating a new material, right? So that's the material science type of the solution. And then the other one is you need help with your factory and your production line of optimizing it to reduce energy. Are there any other ones, or
so
those are the 2 right now?
Oh, yes, this is cost reduction. Cost reduction, actually, I can give you a couple of examples. US customers, they have a less energy problem, but they like to save, improve the throughput and improve their yield. And so this is basically the US customers' need. To deal with all these problems, actually, our model is almost very similar. It's optimization.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. So it's interesting. We start to see these. There's a set of problems that have multiple variables, usually north of 50, and hundreds of variables. They have an optimization problem, and it ends up being this multidimensional surface you have to navigate to find the low point. So AIs can do that, but a lot of people think this is Robbie's going to chuckle. Quantum annealing is like a way to get there. Have you looked at kind of quantum computing as a way to solve these problems? Are like
sure,
companies like Corning looking at this?
Okay. Very interesting that you bring up quantum computing. So as a matter of fact, we got this center here, local, and collaborate with the IBM, to really promote the quantum computing. But quantum computing at this time, that is still, I participated in several seminars organized by NC State, and it's still a beginning. There's I would say bit of errors is still significant, especially that you talk about the percentage, right? You talk about the traditional computer is 10 minus 10 to 10 minus 12 bit error rate. So it's not there yet, but progress is there. If this thing's available, we can immediately apply to this. It's a computing tool, so you probably don't need, I would say, the GPU chips anymore. So that's basically what we
Yeah, sorry, Robert. We asked the quantum question of every potential startup we invest in. So
we'll ask Invitejet the same question.
They're getting the same question.
I could, if you need this is the part that I can provide you my perspective, because I did dive in. Actually, I read all this Richard Feynman's physical lectures about these quantum mechanics and physics, and we can. I'm not saying I would give you advice, but I can share my opinion with you.
Scott would love that. He's a
Maybe
bit of an
over lunch
expert.
we can dive.
Absolutely. I also have a friend actually living in California, where Nikita comes from. He used to study theoretical physics at RPI. This is his major, so I always have a fun to discuss with him.
Scott would love that.
Scott's a thought leader in quantum physics. So.
Quantum annealing especially.
Yeah, I like quantum annealing.
We can have a lunch together.
Okay, someday, not today. Yeah, okay. Sorry, back to reality.
Yeah, Robert, so you mentioned that, you don't have any immediate plans of patenting the process that you guys have internally, but how do you think about staying competitive and sort of, edging out other sort of competitors who could build a similar platform? How are you thinking about that?
Yeah, so right now, not probably algorithm, but the software structure, like how you design this thing, so the model itself, eventually we can patent that. Or we can just do these trademark, so on, and we can do that. And we did ask our patent lawyers and how we do that, but not at this time, as we haven't really seen. Let's say we conducted competitive analysis, and we haven't seen any competitor is doing what we're doing. And most of these so-called competitors are general AI service providers, like you saw that C3.ai. This is probably a pretty famous company served for the industries, but they provide services specifically just for crude oil. That's their connections. If they move to this industry, they need a tremendous domain industry experience and so on. Right now, we haven't seen that. Our strategy typically is that, well, apply for IP is important, but our strategy is that we need to innovate all the time. As a matter of fact, just this week, we got to break through something. And then to really make our Z FastQ much, much better than before. Mm-hmm. So this is basically our spirit. In my side, especially in software, it's really hard for you to patent something. Mm-hmm. And on the other side, in material, all the BIOS is much easier to do that.
Got it.
Last question for me is on sales and marketing. So, these days it's harder than ever for startups to effectively, sell and make the market aware of their solution, just given that there's so much noise and so many new companies are being started. I'm curious kind of your thoughts on that, and specifically as it relates to hiring in sales and marketing. Do you need somebody that already has all the contacts? I mean, it sounds like you don't have the specific process down yet, and you're going to wait to maybe make a bigger hire once you have that, which I think makes sense. But the question is what are you looking for in that salesperson?
Margaret, so first, Robbie, to answer your question, because we have been in the industry for a long time, our team members, our friends, actually, so on, we have about 50 to 100 contacts in the industries in that domain. Those are the people right now the companies we're access. Now, in order to really, just set a scale, the sales and marketing effort and so on, absolutely what you said, we really need a sales representative, good one. I did ask some advice from Scott on how to get that. And we did hire some people when I was in Asia for sales and so on. We do need that. And so combine that our key contacts with the sales representative with the skills and the capacity, and that's what we need. And also, of course, you need to go to trade show. We need to have a kind of like the first, I would say, world-class marketing quality for our products, because we do believe our products are world-class. But if you don't marketing that, if you do not market that with a world-class effort, you will not really sell that to the customers. So to answer your questions, yes, we need a sales representative. We need a comprehensive marketing and sales path. You're right that we're not having a comprehensive strategy yet. We don't. So right now it's just kind of like we're trying to exhaust what we have 50 to 100 industry connections, and then we sometimes go to the trade show. We don't have enough money to run the booths I mentioned to Scott.
They're driving overnight from here to Ohio with peanut butter sandwiches and going to the trade show.
Wow.
Nice.
Staying in a youth hostel.
Guerrilla marketing.
And then coming back that same night.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I just say that it's not the reason we back the money, because I said that Scott told me when at the beginning, he was doing the similar thing. And this is probably typical problems of startup companies. We're going to keep doing that. And as long as needed, we're going to do everything we can. And we got like two slogans here. Number one is that this is our will. We must understand our customers' need and requirement that better than anyone else. And we must deliver a product and whatever the service is or whatever, and with a good quality to meet our customers' need and requirement that nobody else will provide. So this is basically our core. And without this, actually, you just cannot do this. So this is basically our mindset. But meanwhile, you do need to have a tactics and strategy to carry on this kind of a mindset.
Yeah, so I guess my last question would be just around the 3 platform offerings that you have, and you said you have already a couple of customers cited. So is that a bundled offering that a customer would have to do, or are you seeing one particular sort of platform that's more popular with the customers or not? Is there sort of some clarity on that?
Yes. So 3 products actually serve different needs, so they're not bundled together.
Okay.
As a matter of fact, the ZMap is a spin-off from our ZAI, is a part of ZAI, but we found that individual engineers and scientists need that better. It's just like you can put that into your cell phone. Even when you conduct a meeting, you go to the meeting with the senior management and so on, you can basically get the solution immediately. Mm-hmm. You can put this input. So let me, I thank you, Scott, for your recommendation. This is basically, you just put this, you can do this even ahead of time. You put the materials, process parameters, all these things there. Then you just say that if somebody asks you, do you have ideas that how we can improve the yield? You just put that here, the result will generate it. Now this is different from general large language model because we put all kind of materials in the rack and also prompt engineering to basically provide very reliable solutions for the scientists and engineers. If they want to work in their own desk, come back to their office, they can generate thousands of ideas by this. To be honest, 30 years ago, if I had this at Corning, I would probably be 5 times more productive than at that time I was. Mm. So this is this is another interface for the Z-FastQ. So customers just need to put it in, you put that there, the result will come out just within a few minutes. This one definitely is more complicated. So we have to do the POC.
All right, thanks, Robert.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you, appreciate it.
We've gone from the exceptional 8 to the fabulous 4 to our 2 remaining contestants, ZW and here to pitch Invitejet. We've got Brian and Paul. They're 2 Celsiuses, 4 lattes, and unknown quantities of drip coffee in at this point. They're ready to go. They're going to do the 10-minute pitch in 10 seconds. Okay, let's see. You have 10 minutes and go.
Reminder, they already pitched in the round of 8, so you can go back and check out that episode. For now, since many of you have already heard that pitch, we're going to get right to the selection committee members' questions.
Here at the Tweener Fund, we always like to ask every startup we talk to about their quantum computing strategy. So just curious
and your 10-year plan.
Yeah.
With detailed financials.
No, sorry. Again, this makes a lot of sense for many of the reasons that you mentioned in terms of calendar being this kind of view that most people haven't leveraged. What is your technical moat around this? When I first heard it, it's kind of an idea of well, why hasn't this been done before?
Yeah.
And so why hasn't it been done before? And what's going to give you guys an advantage when other people say, oh, let's go do what they're doing?
Yeah, absolutely. Good question. We've got, this is a question we get, is a frequently asked question. So we've got actually a doc that is a moat stock, basically. So happy to share that with you afterwards. But essentially, if I go through it off the top of my head, the first one is there is a technical moat here. So calendars are old, outdated technology, was built in the 80s and not many people work in it. So there is a technical learning curve with calendars and correctly sending an invite, right? There is no IDE for calendars. So there's no with a lot of code editors these days, technically speaking here, it will tell you when there's a semicolon missing, right? But there's nothing like that for calendars. So you've got to go out and actually send it out and make sure that it works on production or in a development environment that you've created, which we have. And it's just, there is a technical challenge to it all. The other thing is that since these are on behalf of our customers and their marketing materials, they have to look good. So the other technical risk there for anybody is on the client side, because not everybody uses the same calendar apps, right? So I'm a Google Calendar guy. You may be an Apple Calendar guy. She may be a Microsoft 365 girl. Those calendars all parse the actual invite differently. So you've really got to know and understand what's going on there. It's not just simple HTML code or Markdown or anything like that. Each calendar kind of has its own way to parse that information. So again, we've gone through pretty painstakingly and sent out thousands of invites ourselves to make sure that it looks good for our customers. And from there, there's a scaling risk as well. Not many people know how to send out hundreds of thousands of calendar invites at once, so there's definite scaling risk. And I mean, the list goes on and on and on. We've got, integrations that we are building into people's marketing tech stack right now. So we already integrate with Klaviyo and MailChimp and Shopify, for instance. And so those deep integrations are also kind of a moat as well, because you get into the world of switching costs and raising those. And then, we just released multi-tenant accounts, which means, 6 to 10 people at a company can use the tool, and once 6 or 10 people are using it, not any one person is going to say, "Hey, we've got to kill our Invitejet subscription," because they don't know how other people are using it, for instance. So, while the moats list is long, I'll just leave it at that.
Cool. So you're fundraising.
Yeah.
What is the plan for use of proceeds? What are you guys going to use that money for?
Yeah, so use of proceeds, that's a really good question. It's kind of split into 3 different buckets, but the biggest bucket being engineering. We want to move fast. We've got a lot of features. We got a really lengthy roadmap ahead of us that we've built out, and we know we need resources to throw at that, right? And so I've personally scaled product and engineering teams at VC-backed startups and public companies. So I know how to do that in a lean way. Paul has, run e-commerce brands before, so he's got this, and a B2B SaaS company as well. So he has experience in sales and marketing. So it's kind of a split right now. But most of it is going to headcount.
To branch off of that a little bit with the headcount, one of the big goals that we have as a first mover in this space is to really have educational content out there around how people can use this. Because, we could say a lot of our budget's going to be going to marketing or anything like that, but right now nobody is going to Google and searching calendar marketing or time-based marketing. So we have to kind of create this new channel, essentially. While also not necessarily competing with, but showing that we're supplemental to this tech stack that all these e-commerce companies are using to engage and convert their customers. So, we say to our customers, you're never going to send as many invites as you are SMS, as you are email. But how do we use the same language that those companies are using to start to get content out there and teach people about what Invitejet does and what calendar marketing can do for them?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So you've got engineering, you're going to scale up. How about sales and marketing? I mean, content is part of that. What else are you doing on go-to-market?
Yeah. So right now, the big focus on the go-to-market has mostly been my network and just founder-led growth. One of the big unlocks and one conversation I had recently with Matt Simino is absolutely focusing on the partnership programs with agencies and getting those started, because at the end of the day, these agencies hold the wallets to the brands, right? If there's a new tool or if there's a new approach or a new way to engage customers, especially at the numbers that we're seeing. So a lot of times brands are going to look at how much revenue do I get per send, right? And I believe with email, it's between 6 and 22 cents or something like that. For every email that you send, you're going to get between that back. From our initial set, almost 8 million invites now, the floor is about 15 cents, and we've seen it as high as $1.22. So that's an easy sell to go into. That also is a lot of time, because with agency partnerships, you're talking with one, but then we're white gloving and making sure that we're helping them set up with best practices. That can be anywhere from a small agency with 5 brands, that could be up to 100 brands. So that's really the focus right now. And I think as the world starts to learn a little bit more about this, then it's going to be, hey, how do we hire people to then start doing a little bit more on the marketing paid side as well.
Yep. Gotcha. Building that weighted sales pipeline. Yeah.
How much platform risk is there from, the big calendar providers doing something that would interrupt your ability to provide the service?
Sure. It's definitely a risk. But at the same time, the way that we've built this technology is one that it's a chameleon, I'll say. It looks like a calendar invite, it smells like a calendar invite, it is a calendar invite. So if they were to put up some blanket policy that, started filtering our messages, they're going to run into a lot of issues because it looks like any other calendar invite that you get. It's one-to-one. It's not like a list of 10,000 attendees or anything like that. So there is a little bit of a technology shield there for us. But then also, I don't know if you want to talk about Gotham and the policies and procedures and whatnot with Gmail.
Yeah, that was a big question that we had in the beginning. I think at the end of the day, the Zooms and the Calendlys and the other like calendar first companies out there, they're sending billions of calendar invites, every day, week, whatever. What we're going to be sending on top of that, it's probably not going to be a splash in the bucket for them. And from a Gmail perspective, which, is probably 70% of what people use, Google just made some changes to their policies last year. And usually that's on a 3 to 5 year window that they would even be able to make other policy changes. And usually they're not drastic changes. That has to go through the SEC and more around just more around that. So even Gotham was like, even if they make a change, it would probably be a change that would require you to, on a consent pop-up or something like that, include calendar invites as a checkbox, much like you would for email or SMS. Outside of that, they're not going to like shut this down right away. So, that would be a measure of success for us, honestly. Yeah. If somebody, starts to require that people have to consent to calendar marketing, then we know that we've made a splash there.
What strategies do you guys have in place to, ensure that your brands continue to use Invitejet, or have you had some pushback there?
Yeah. You want to take that?
Yeah. So early days there, so around Black Friday, Cyber Monday, for instance, that's going to be a massive opportunity for brands to use something like this. We knew at the end of the year, I actually hadn't shared that with Brian, the way that e-commerce works. At the end of the year, people usually just like get rid of tools and then they're not going to be using tools in the new year. So we saw some churn, had conversations with our customers, and really the biggest feedback to us was, we knew how to use it with like product launches or these big sales, but in between times, we didn't know how to use it. And so that's where that gives us the opportunity to be like, well, here's how another brand is using it. They sent it to an unengaged audience. Here's this other brand that did a shipping cutoff date so that people would know this is the day that I have to order so that I get it by Valentine's Day or Mother's Day, right? So it's going to be, that's going to be one of our big major pushes, is on the retention side, giving people as much information as possible to know how to use it. Postscript is a SMS platform. They do a really good job of creating almost this yearly calendar view of all the major events, all the things that a brand could look at a calendar and say, oh, National Taco Day, maybe we can do something with that, right? So outside of just the promotional calendar, let's say, we need to do a good job of creating those playbooks, showing, hey, this brand used this playbook and it led to this result. Would you like to implement it? And then I think right now, in the early days, it's easy to use, but there aren't any like automagical campaigns where you could just say, create, and boom, it gives you some AI feedback on like, this is what segment would be an interesting one to use for X date, and this is the information that, and the UTMs and all the parameters that would help to convert those customers. So we want to be able to make it as easy as possible to use and give them ways to use it.
Yeah, making it as intuitive as possible. Yep, makes sense.
Speaking of that, I noticed a glaring omission in your slides, and it's around AI. And so I don't know if we see a deck these days that doesn't talk about AI. And so it's actually refreshing, frankly, that I think you just had made a joke about AI during your pitch. You didn't say anything else about it. So I am kind of curious, though, like, how do you see that as a factor?
Yeah.
Is that even something that
it's on our roadmap? Right?
Well, first off, AI is our third co-founder. So
Yeah,
we
there
use
you
it
go.
exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, it is on our roadmap. It's not in our three horizons because we don't see it as like this gigantic revenue driver or anything like that. It's a nice to have. It's a good benefit for our customers. But it really is a feature. And so for us, we have things on our roadmap like smart segmentation, right? So we have connections to their Klaviyo account, their Shopify accounts. So we have all of this customer data, but nobody's really doing a great job in terms of like segmenting customers, by things as simple as time zones or their repurchase period or, their buyer behavior, stuff like that. So, we will have those features that, say, hey, let's put Robbie, let's put the calendar invite on his calendar at this time because that's usually when he actually shops. He's a Saturday morning shopper. He sleeps in until 5:45, and then that's when he does his shopping. Versus, Brian, who's like a Tuesday afternoon shopper. Like, put it on his calendar then. So, those things are on our roadmap. But like I said, it's not the sole focus of what makes this company successful is AI, right? We know personally a lot of companies that are in this, we're all of our cards, all of our chips are in the AI basket, and we just don't think it's a good one to be in. I worked in crypto in 2021. We raised a lot of money, and a lot of companies raised a lot of money during that hype cycle. So we don't want to see that repeat itself.
It's important, but it's kind of a shiny object.
Yeah.
We want to really nail down the calendar aspect and the data that comes with that. And then it will obviously be a part of that. There will be an agentic, option for, like he said, the smart segmenting and much more.
Campaign
I think
creation,
one of the other big ones, and the Klaviyos and the PostScripts of the world are not going to push people away or push brands away from their platform based on the data that they have. So if they know that a calendar invite or an SMS is going to perform better than an email, they're still going to tell you to send an email. So while people will always send less invites than SMS than email, we think there's also a good opportunity for just explicitly saying, hey, like the best approach for this audience based on this behavior and the data that we have is to send this campaign across these multi-channel views, right? So it's going to be best to send to Robbie on that Saturday morning 5:45 time slot, whereas Nikita, maybe it's email on Tuesday. So we think there's an opportunity there as well, and the data will be able to show that.
Yeah, I think there's two things to think about AI. Number one, you get a tailwind from it because the most popular thing we've written about in Tweener Times is this organic traffic is falling off a cliff. And that's for everybody. So the people we're talking to are just founders of startups in general, but for large retailers, they're really struggling with this. I don't know if you've seen it in your data, but the efficacy of email is plummeting because with Gen AI, everyone's just like emailing like crazy.
Oh yeah,
and so
absolutely.
The more you do it, the less effective it is.
Yeah.
So in a way, it creates a tailwind for you because the calendar is going to be one of the few things and you almost may not want to have an AI like go crazy on people's calendars. So that's going to be interesting to think through. But that should benefit you here in this current time period. The other one is there's I think a lot of these early merchants. So if you think about the Shopify segment, and I'm from e-commerce, so know a little bit about this. So the big guys, they have their promotional calendar and everything. But there's that Shopify customer. They may not know, hey, they may not even be thinking about Valentine's Day, like the basics that we do in dads and grads and back to school and all that. So you can almost say, you see you guys having a little, agent that kind of says, hey, Mr. Shopify customer, looking across our other Shopify customers, this is a great time to put in a this, that, and other. So then you can also get into personalization around if it's Robbie's cat's birthday and he could, he does a big big event for it, of course.
Yeah.
He's got so many
should.
cats.
That's right.
Yeah, so that kind of thing. So I do think there's something for that small business, and even I think every retailer should be considering doing drops because we've got companies here in the Triangle like Nugget where they drop their basically couches, these big pieces of furniture, and they sell out in hours because it creates this event-based buzz around a new offering.
Yeah, we have
Not to the nature of Kickstarter where you're kind of like getting it funded before you ship it, but like a drop, it's available.
No, we have a few product drop style companies that we work with. One of which, Boston Scally, kind of the New England style hat. They will do a new hat drop every single Friday. They have trained their audience that at 12 p.m. Eastern, that is going to be open. Before that, it's gated. And they're doing that every single week because they know that their customer base is more likely to buy 8 hats than 1 hat. Just absolutely crazy. So, and they go out fast. So for that VIP segment or that specific segment that they have that they know this is a high value customer, giving them that early access through a calendar invite is actually even more beneficial because that one can help them with their inventory planning, et cetera, but also just gives them a fast head start at exactly the time that they send that invite and then leave it open for others and know from there how much more should we be ordering week over week, month over month, and scaling this thing.
So you talked about having like a long list of moats, but I'm curious, who are the existing competitors, barring like big corporations like the Zooms or?
Yeah, so Zoom, they're not, sending mass invites out, there are a couple small platforms that do the webinar space. So, they'll say, please, you can input your CSV of emails and we can create an invite for all of them to show up at a webinar at a specific time. And that's their product positioning. There's really nobody that's positioned in the same way that we are. There are, so like one of the stories I like to tell is like, MailChimp actually has an add to calendar button within their email, okay? But it's a really bad UX UI because if you click that add to calendar button, it's actually gonna download an ICS attachment to your device, right? And then you've gotta be a tech savvy super genius to figure out how to get that onto your actual calendar. And if you're like me and you use the Google app on your phone, it's literally impossible to get that calendar invite onto that calendar. So they have some solution there, but it doesn't work well at all. Mm-hmm. I would love to see the day where we actually like do a side-by-side comparison against that to see how we can outperform that. But most people aren't using that MailChimp add to calendar thing for a promotional event. And then also the other part of that story is thinking about one of our advisors, Matt Simino from Amped. Like MailChimp has had pop-up technology for a long time, right? To capture that email. That's like one of their very first bread and butters. Like I studied MailChimp like front and back. So I love their story, I know their story. But like they still went out and acquired the best technology and have been spending the last year incorporating that into their platform. So we don't see it like, oh, they've got a solution in place. Like that's a showstopper for us. But if there were other entrants into the arena, like bring it on. We're pretty tenacious guys, so we're not going to stop just because somebody.
Yeah,
right.
and
it's a proof point.
Quite frankly, we would be excited about the competition because that only increases the knowledge across the board, and more people are searching it. And being a first mover into the space, we think we'll be ahead of the game there.
Mm-hmm. Sounds good.
That's a good segue into my question. So I've been a part of a couple of startups that were first in the category, hearing calendar tech. That's kind of cool. We certainly don't have any calendar tech companies yet. And as an engineer, I always thought, wow, first mover, you hear about the first mover advantage, and it's like, that sounds great. I love doing new stuff. We're going to be the first ones to do it. what could be the problem. Turns out there's the first mover disadvantage. Companies like Microsoft have taken advantage of this for many, many years, where they see, first movers come into the market and kind of wait, let them make all the mistakes, and then come in and kind of swoop in and take over the category. So I'm curious kind of how you think about it. It's, again, there are advantages, but there's also challenges with it. Educating the market is difficult. Again, they're not searching for your solution today, which means you kind of have to drive demand to a certain degree. And so I'm kind of curious how you think about overcoming some of those obstacles.
Sure. Yeah. We, I just finished watching Race Through Alaska or something like that. And, they're dropped there. They've got to bushwhack through the forest to get to their destination and whatnot. And that literally, that's a perfect analogy, really, right? They're the first movers. So it's really hard for them to move through this forest, this dense, thick forest. And then those other people can come in and kind of ride their coattails towards the finish line. But we really think like this is, so we've been building this since Black Friday 2023. So that was our initial proof of concept. And then we saw a 400% year over year increase in sales in one of Paul's stores. And then that's when we were like, okay, let's build out the MVP. Let's actually build out a platform and make this thing work. Started inviting brands in and whatnot. So we feel like we've got quite a head start in terms of building a best-in-class tool for best-in-class companies. So, I don't worry so much about other companies coming in, because if they did, I assume, and I can't, assumptions are bad, but I assume they're going to be a smaller company trying to catch up with us rather than one of these big giants who is going to take a wait-and-see approach, right? So I worked in corporate venture capital for a while, and that was always our approach was, hey, let's throw some money at like 5 of these companies in this space and just wait and see, right? Like, why would we build a team to build out, all this calendar tech stuff when we could just, and try to catch up within a year versus just, making several investments so that we get information rights. And we can see which one's going to be the clear winner and go all in on them.
What do you do when this is super successful? And what I mean by that, and when I first heard about this and thought about it, I was like, wow, calendar's great because it's super clean. The only things in my calendar right now are the things that I want in my calendar. Mm-hmm. And so play this out, 5 years down the road, you guys are super successful. Now there's other people starting to do it. Other companies are wanting, and now all of a sudden my calendar goes from the super clean thing to now it's got all sorts of promotional stuff in there.
Yeah.
How do you see that playing out? I mean, would that, could that potentially mean that they're going to be changing the interfaces to prevent that? Does that happen sooner than later? If there's, it seems like it's going to start going in that direction with calendars, or is there going to be a reaction from people saying, we got to shut this down because we don't want to mess up our calendars?
Yeah. If you have a really deep personal brand or deep personal connection to a brand, you're fine with that on the calendar. And we don't tell our brands like, hey, you should be sending calendar invites every single week. It's like, to Paul's point earlier, like email, SMS, calendars, right? So it's not something that's going to flood your calendar, especially from one brand. We promote that you should be using this tool maybe once, twice, maybe 3 times a month at best. But if you have that connection, you're going to keep it on your calendar. If you don't like that connection, if you don't like that brand and you don't want them to appear on your calendar, we don't hide or unsubscribe. That was by virtue of we were thinking that this might have an adverse effect in a lot of consumers' eyes. So we put that unsubscribe nice and big for everybody to see. And then when they click that unsubscribe, they can say, unsubscribe me from their email flow, or unsubscribe me from their calendar flow, or unsubscribe me from both. I don't want to hear from this brand ever again. So we've made that really simple for consumers to say, I want to opt out of calendars, right? So they can keep their calendars clean, which is totally fine. And it is actually good feedback for the brands because they're going to find out who their 1,000 true fans are, Kevin Kelly style. So while there's a worry, there's also there's also a really positive side to it. I don't know if you have anything to add.
I think the other side of it is, as of right now, it's very much focused on that bulk send opportunity, right? But I think that we'll move in a direction where it's more, notify me or remind me. So if there's a low stock on something, it goes out, you didn't get it, or if there's a new product coming out, those consumers should be able to self-serve and put themselves on an invite versus just getting a blast. I think that eventually we will move much more in that direction where people are just allowing it depending on the brand, because we know that if the consumer loves that brand enough to have it on the calendar, that's when it's really powerful.
And when we get into the world of third-party API here, and we do start sending calendar invites for restaurant reservations, that's repairing the restaurant's leaky funnel in one stance. But like the end consumer is probably going to welcome that as well, because I've been married for 16 years, and I've forgotten my own anniversary probably 7 of those years, something like that.
Just happened to me.
Yeah, exactly. So I would absolutely welcome hey, I got a dinner reservation on Friday night, and I better not forget this time. You know what I
Nikita,
mean?
you forgot or you were forgotten?
Actually, I forgot.
No.
Both of us forgot.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
our parents called us and was like, hey, guess what's today?
Yeah.
It's your anniversary.
Amazing.
And we were looking at each
Yeah.
other and okay.
It was just on the
I get
calendar.
Well, it's
Yeah.
always, I feel like I'm always being tested. If I make a reservation, I'm the one that has to remember. I'm sure she remembers, but then Friday night rolls around, she's like, we were supposed to go out for drinks tonight. And I'm like, oh, I totally forgot. So yeah, that would clear a lot of things up at home for me.
Cool.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Awesome.
We appreciate you guys doing this for the 3rd time, and congrats again on your term sheet. So
Thank
look
you.
forward to
Yeah,
watching your
congrats.
success.
Yes.
Appreciate it.
Thanks. Okay, we're at the moment of truth. So we've seen pitches from ZW and Invitejet. What are you guys thinking? Nikita, what are some of your thoughts of the 2 pitches?
Yeah, I think both pitches were great. The folks that came to pitch out their companies, they clearly had domain expertise. What I liked about Robert's pitch was that he clearly had a vision for the company, and he knows a lot about the glass and ceramics and sort of the future opportunity there. What I liked about Invitejet is kind of similar. They've had that e-commerce experience, that brand marketing experience, and trying to bring that and sort of thinking about it in a different way. I think Robbie, what do you think?
Also, Robert works.
Yeah, Robert's my legal name. Fun fact. I like both pitches. I was glad to see those 2 companies make it to the finals. I've talked to both companies before, so I knew a little bit about each when they came in. Robert's obviously got a pretty significant machine learning angle to his story, which I like. With Invitejet, they are a first mover in a new category, which I also like. And so I think there's a lot on both sides to appreciate. So yeah, it's a tough decision.
Yeah. One of the interesting things about the Tweener Fund is, unlike a traditional model where most of our selection committee has come from, we do an index fund. So we basically make 10 to 15 investments a quarter. So a lot of times we don't have to choose, which is kind of a nice luxury.
Yeah, I want to say both, Scott. That's what I want to say.
Yeah, my inclination, all 8 companies have been exceptional. So they'll definitely stay on our radar, and we'll keep in touch with them all. But the purpose of this, like a sporting event, is unlike soccer. Soccer over here, where you have ties, we can't have a tie. So we've historically gone by last name. Robbie, you're at the top of that list, being an Allen. So the thought experiment here is you've got to pick one company to put $25,000 into. What are you thinking?
Yeah, again, it's a hard decision. If I had to just pick one, I would go with Invitejet. Again, I just think that they are onto something. It's pretty uncommon nowadays to hear a story and it's like, hadn't thought of that, or why hasn't that been done? And that was certainly the case when I heard the Invitejet story. And I think it's a great team, interesting technology. We're users of it at the Tweener Fund, so it's got a lot of things that I like. And obviously, there's risk, as there is with any startup, but I think it's a really interesting company for the future.
Awesome. Nikita, that puts you in as a Ramaswamy, that puts you in the hot suite, the middle here. I'll be the tiebreaker if there's a tie, but let's see where we end up.
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be a tie, Scott. I think I agree with Robbie. I thought Invitejet was the most compelling investment opportunity here. And to just sort of add to the reasons that Robbie mentioned, one of the things that stood out in their presentation in this AI era is that, they see it as something that would enhance their features down the line, but they had a really good product right off the bat, even without sort of focusing on that for the most part. So I think there is somewhat of a de-risked opportunity there to a certain extent. So I think that was very different. That was refreshing, and really liked the team, really liked their energy. And I think they're of the mentality of just getting things done, which I think at this stage of the company, it's really, really important to kind of move fast and do things that way. So for those reasons, I really liked Invitejet.
Yeah, awesome. And I think that's a great point. Again, and we talked about this a little bit, just the fact that AI didn't come up in their pitch. They don't really need it. Again, there's not a lot of companies that we talk to these days where I can't see an angle where AI could potentially take over the whole category they're in. And I just don't see that as the case right now for calendar tech. I mean, partly because they're kind of starting a new category. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I agree. I think that's an exciting component of it.
So in a way, it's contrarian, which is kind of an interesting thing. Yeah, awesome. Nikita, you moved here from Silicon Valley just like days ago still. So still fresh off the plane. How do our founders here in the Triangle kind of compare to what you see? Obviously we don't have like the Mark Benioffs and the Mark Zuckerbergs and like the Deca unicorns. We do have some Deca unicorns, but so of the pitches you've seen and founders you've worked with, how do we compare?
Yeah, I think founders here are extremely hardworking and extremely sincere in even their sort of pitching to the investors. I mean, I think in the Bay Area, it's all about telling the story, and then when you dig deep, there are a lot of questions here. But I think founders here are upfront. They explain the idea or the product very clear. They're very, very open to critical feedback, and they're very sort of well aware of the shortcomings or whatever is it that works well. So I think that's been really refreshing, and the companies out here are every bit as great as the companies out there. So I think it really comes down to the how refreshing it has been to speak to these founders with. They're very sincere and hardworking, which is what has stood out to me the most.
Awesome. So the Silicon Valley guys are slackers and liars. All right. Just kidding. Putting words in your mouth. I know you would never say that. Awesome. Well, this concludes our first Tweener Madness. We want to thank all the selection committee folks that I think we ended up with 20 selection committee members over time. So thanks to them. Thanks to the 8 contestants, and congratulations to Invitejet for winning the first Tweener Madness.
And Scott, you didn't say who would you have picked?
It is very hard. I probably would have gone with Invitejet. Yeah. I have subject matter expertise on that one, and I use the product and I've seen the efficacy. For our little events where we're trying to invite 100 people, it's impossible to punch through people's their mindset to get on their calendar. They have to, if you do like an invite link of any kind and they have to go through a whole exercise, the drop off is like almost 100%.
Yeah.
So here, just being able to get on the calendar is a huge win. So we've actually seen the efficacy ourselves. Whereas, I trust Robert. He's always going to know more than I ever will about that stuff. But it's harder to understand the veracity of his claims because just can't try the product, and we'd have to stand up a new glass factory, and probably not going to do that in due diligence for a small
maybe after your quantum physics experiment.
Yes, I do. I do wonder if quantum. So yeah, we'll see. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everybody, and thanks to you guys for participating.
Yeah.
And thanks to our sponsors for sponsoring this, and the Walk West /Earfluence team for all your hard work. Carson, Mark, Jason. There's a lot of people off camera that made this work. I think we've got. We have 6 cameras looking at us all the time. So appreciate that and all your help.
Great job.
And Javier.
Great job.
Very respected. Thanks, everybody. And Rebecca.
For more Tweener content, check out the Triangle Tweener Time Substack at tweener.substack.com. For more Tweener content, check out tweenertimes.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you again soon on Triangle Tweener Talks.